She always believed that some moments in life were harmless, predictable, almost boring. Like meeting your daughter's future husband for the first time. You smile, you ask polite questions, you pretend to listen. Nothing more than that. At least that's what Margaret told herself the entire afternoon while setting the table with hands that wouldn't stop trembling. If I'm being honest, I've been in rooms like that. Rooms where everything looks normal but the air feels heavy for no clear reason. You don't know why your chest tightens, only that it does. That was Margaret that day. She couldn't explain it, not even to herself. Her daughter Olivia had been talking about this dinner for weeks. Too excited, too hopeful. She was getting married in 3 months, glowing with that kind of happiness parents dream of giving their children. And Margaret wanted to be happy too. She really did, but there was a knot in her stomach that no deep breath could undo. The name of the man Olivia was bringing home was Nathan. Nathan Brooks. Just a name. That's what Margaret kept repeating. Just a name. She had heard it dozens of times already, spoken casually over phone calls and video chats. Nathan likes this. Nathan works in that field. Nathan is wonderful, Mom. And Margaret always nodded, always smiled, always said she couldn't wait to meet him. But when Olivia sent a photo earlier that week, something inside Margaret shifted. It wasn't his face. Not exactly. It was the eyes. Or maybe it was the way he smiled, restrained, almost cautious, like someone used to watching what he says. Margaret dismissed it. Faces remind us of other faces all the time. That's what memory does. It plays tricks. Still, as evening approached, she found herself lingering in front of the hallway mirror, adjusting her blouse again and again. Her reflection looked older than she felt. Lines carved by years of responsibility, sacrifice, and silence. Especially silence. She had spent most of her adult life being careful. Careful with words, careful with stories, careful with the past. The doorbell rang at exactly 7. Margaret froze. For a moment that felt embarrassingly long, she didn't move. She just stared at the door as if it might open itself. Her heart beat so loudly she was sure her husband Richard could hear it from the living room. "I'll get it," Richard said cheerfully, already halfway down the hall. Margaret followed a few steps behind, her legs heavy, her mind suddenly blank. This was ridiculous, she told herself. This was her daughter's fiancé, a stranger, nothing more. The door opened. Nathan stood there, holding a bottle of wine in one hand and a small smile on his face. He was taller than she expected, broad shoulders, neatly trimmed beard. He looked normal. Perfectly normal. "Mr. and Mrs. Collins," he said warmly. "It's really nice to finally meet you." Margaret felt it before she understood it. A sharp, sudden drop in her chest, like missing a step on a staircase. Her vision blurred for half a second. Because when Nathan looked at her, really looked at her, his expression changed. Just for a heartbeat. Recognition. It vanished almost instantly, replaced by politeness. But it was there, and Margaret saw it. She extended her hand automatically, her fingers cold against his warm grip. "Welcome," she managed to say. Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. Olivia bounced in behind him, oblivious. "See? I told you he was charming," she laughed, kissing her mother on the cheek. Margaret smiled for her daughter. She always smiled for her daughter. But her eyes drifted back to Nathan, who was now chatting easily with Richard, complimenting the house, making small talk. He looked comfortable. Too comfortable. Dinner passed in fragments. Margaret remembered sitting at the table, remembered plates being passed, glasses clinking, laughter rising and falling. But her mind was elsewhere, trapped in a place she hadn't visited in over 25 years. Nathan talked about his work, about growing up in a small town, about moving cities after college, ordinary details, safe details. Until he mentioned his mother. "She raised me mostly on her own," Nathan said casually. "My dad passed away before I was born." The fork slipped from Margaret's hand and clattered against the plate. Everyone laughed it off. Nervous accidents happen all the time, but Margaret's hands were shaking now. openly, and she pressed them into her lap, hoping no one noticed. Before he was born. She told herself not to jump to conclusions. Thousands of men grew up without fathers. Thousands. This meant nothing. And yet, as Nathan continued speaking, describing his mother as strong, private, someone who avoided talking about the past, Margaret felt the walls inside her closing in. She excused herself under the pretense of needing fresh air. Outside, the night was cool and quiet. Margaret leaned against the porch railing, breathing deeply, trying to slow her thoughts. This was absurd. She was letting ghosts dictate her present. I've seen people do that. Let old memories take control over moments that deserve joy. It's a dangerous thing, memory. It doesn't ask permission before it hurts you. She stayed outside longer than necessary, replaying a face from her youth. A man she hadn't thought about in years. A man with dark hair and the same careful eyes. When she returned inside, Nathan was waiting alone in the kitchen, rinsing his glass. I hope I didn't say anything strange earlier, he said gently. You seemed uncomfortable. Margaret's breath caught. He turned to face her fully now, and up close there was no denying it. The resemblance was undeniable. The same nose, the same posture, the same subtle tension around the mouth. No, she said quickly. Just tired. It's been a long day. Nathan nodded, but his eyes lingered on her face, searching, measuring. My mother used to look at me like that sometimes, he said quietly, like she was seeing someone else. Margaret felt the room tilt. People see what they want to see. That's funny, she whispered. Nathan smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Maybe, he said, or maybe they see what they've been trying to forget. Silence filled the space between them, thick and dangerous. From the living room, Olivia laughed loudly, carefree, unaware that her world was beginning to crack at the edges. Margaret turned away, her heart racing. She knew then, not the full truth. Not yet, but enough to terrify her. The past hadn't stayed buried. It had walked through her front door, shaken her hand, and sat at her table. And somehow, impossibly, it was about to marry her daughter. Margaret barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, the same image returned: Nathan standing in her doorway. Polite smile, familiar eyes, carrying a past she had locked away with surgical precision. She lay beside Richard, listening to his steady breathing, wondering how a single dinner could dismantle decades of carefully built normalcy. Morning came too quickly. Sunlight poured through the curtains, cruel in its cheerfulness. Margaret moved through the house on autopilot, replaying every word Nathan had said, every pause, every look. She knew this feeling. It was the same dread she had felt years ago when she realized that secrets don't fade. They wait. At breakfast, Richard chatted about work, about the weather, about nothing that mattered. Margaret nodded, smiled, pretended. She had mastered that skill long ago. But inside she was unraveling. Olivia called just before noon. Mom, Nathan loved you, she said brightly. He said you were thoughtful, intense but thoughtful. Margaret's grip tightened around the phone. Intense? Olivia laughed. In a good way. He said you reminded him of someone. Margaret's chest constricted. There was a pause. He didn't say. After the call ended, Margaret sat alone at the kitchen table for a long time. She knew she had reached a crossroads. She could continue pretending, let time blur the details, hope the truth stayed hidden. Or she could face it head on and risk destroying everything her daughter loved. I've watched people choose silence because it feels safer. It rarely is. Silence doesn't protect. It delays. That afternoon, Margaret drove across town without fully deciding where she was going. Her hands moved, the steering wheel from memory, not intention. When she finally stopped, she realized she was parked outside a modest apartment complex she hadn't seen in decades. The name on the mailbox made her stomach drop. Evelyn Brooks. Time folded in on itself. Margaret remembered Evelyn as she once was, sharp-witted, guarded, fiercely independent. They had shared secrets once, shared mistakes, shared a man neither of them truly understood. Margaret didn't knock. Not at first. She sat in her car, heart pounding, until the door opened on its own, and Evelyn stepped out, older but unmistakable. Their eyes met. Evelyn froze. "You," she said flatly. Margaret swallowed. "I need to talk." Evelyn laughed without humor. "After all these years, Yes," Margaret replied, "because our past is about to become my daughter's future." Evelyn studied her for a long moment, then stepped aside. "Come in." The apartment was small, tidy, lived in, photos lined one wall. Nathan at different ages, smiling, unaware. "You never told him," Margaret said quietly. Evelyn's jaw tightened. "I told him what he needed to know. That his father was dead. That his father was gone," Evelyn corrected. "There's a difference." Margaret felt the weight of her own guilt pressing down. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I swear I didn't." Evelyn turned sharply. "You knew enough," she said. "You chose comfort. I chose truth." "Truth?" Margaret scoffed bitterly. "You let him believe a lie his entire life." "And you let yourself believe you were innocent," Evelyn shot back. "We both made choices." Silence stretched between them, thick with years of resentment. "He's marrying my daughter," Margaret said finally. Evelyn's expression faltered. "I know." "You knew?" Margaret whispered. Evelyn nodded slowly. "The moment he showed me her picture, your picture." The air left Margaret's lungs. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because it's not my secret alone," Evelyn replied, "and because part of me wanted to see how long it would take you to recognize your own past." Margaret stood to leave, legs unsteady. "This can't happen." Evelyn's voice hardened. "It already is." That night, Margaret watched Olivia laugh beside Nathan at dinner, her heart breaking in ways she hadn't known were possible. Nathan caught Margaret watching him, and for the first time he didn't look away. Later, he asked to speak with her alone. "I know," he said simply. Margaret's world narrowed to a single point. "Know what?" "My mother told me," he continued. "She told me about the man she loved, about the woman who walked away, about you." Margaret felt tears spill freely now. "I didn't know she was pregnant." Nathan nodded. "I believe you, but believing doesn't erase what is." They stood facing each other, two generations colliding, bound by choices neither could undo. "What are you going to do?" Margaret asked, barely audible. Nathan's gaze softened. "I'm going to tell Olivia the truth." Margaret reached for him instinctively, then stopped herself. "You'll destroy her." "She deserves honesty," he replied. "So do you." When Olivia heard the truth, her scream echoed through the house. Shock gave way to disbelief, then anger, then grief. She accused, she cried, she demanded explanations that no one could fully give. The wedding was postponed. Relationships fractured. Margaret watched her daughter retreat into silence, watched Nathan wrestle with a legacy he never asked for. The house that once felt safe now felt hollow. Weeks passed. One evening, Olivia sat beside her mother on the porch. "I don't know if I can forgive you," she said quietly, "but I don't want to lose you either." Margaret nodded, tears falling freely. "I'll accept whatever you choose." "I've learned something watching lives fall apart and rebuild themselves. Truth doesn't promise healing, it promises clarity. And sometimes that's enough to start again." Months later, Nathan returned, not as a fiancé but as a man seeking peace. He spoke with Olivia for hours. They cried, they laughed weakly, they acknowledged what could never be. They let each other go. Margaret stood in the doorway, watching, knowing this was the cost of buried secrets. Not punishment, consequence. In the end, families don't break because of truth. They break because of the lies we convince ourselves were harmless. If you've stayed with this story until now, thank you. Stories like this aren't easy to hear, but they matter. They remind us that every choice echoes forward, touching lives we may never meet. If this story moved you, if it made you think about your own family, your own past, consider staying with us. Subscribe, like, and listen to more stories that dare to uncover what's hidden. Your time means more than you know.